We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football, and I mean everything in college football, and that means Greg the Heater. Great, yes, it's Greg the Heater. I am 3-0 against the spread in the year 2024. Remember I got the two semifinal games correct against the spread. I got the championship game. I'm 3-0. I am Greg the Heater. Until the end of week 0, and especially at the end of week 1, when everything goes pear-shaped on me. But for now, it is Greg the Heater. This is College Football's Peek Around the Corner, and we cover everything in college football, and that includes our prediction, our order of finish. Today, it's going to be the ACC. Next week, it's going to be the Big 12. The week after that, it's going to be the Big 10. The week after that, it's going to be the SEC. In early July, we're going to go through some G5. We're going to go through our Heisman candidate. We're going to go a best position, best players in each position. Then when we hit August, we're going to be talking about all the rumors, all the steam, all the reports on August camp. Buckle up, brace for impact. When it hits the second week of June, well, the blood starts a-boiling. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. If you want to donate, if you want to support this channel through a donation, please hit the $sign when you make a comment, and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Now, after I do these predictions, we're going to open up the phone lines, and you can let me have it. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. Let me know, but remember, just remember, last year at this time, what did Greg the Heater say? I said Florida State was going to win it. A couple months later, the ACC media predicted Clemson. We nailed ACC, and we are going to nail it again this year. Now, it's going to be very controversial. Just like our trivia game on Saturday night. Controversy sells. But my prediction this year on who's going to the ACC championship game, who's going to win it, it's all here, baby. It's all in the heart. I'm not even going to use this brain. When I start using this brain, everything screws up. No, it's what I feel in here. Right here. Right here. The old heart. The old heart. I got to listen to my heart. Got to listen to my heart. Okay, before we get into our ACC predictions, remember, next week it's going to be the Big 12. Week after that, the Big 10. The week after that, the SEC. See, when we get into July, I want to be able to talk about my predictions as the month of July goes on. I want to be able to talk to players. I want to be talking about the coaches. I want to be talking about other people's reports on what is happening. Then when we get into August, we're going to be talking about August camp. So we get the predictions done in June. I've got enough information. I'm on information overload, and I'm going to release it onto you, you innocent people, you, the PATC community. You're going to get into the mind of the fat guy from Minnesota tonight. And some of you may never recover again. Let me say thank you for everybody who's come on in. Lee Go Gators is in the house. Kay Struthers, thanks for coming on in. Minnesota Seminoles, Charles M., Mr. Buckeye Gerald Jones, The Walking Geek, Larry the GM, Daniel's in the house. DP is in the house. LSU Tigers. There are going to be some teams, unfortunately, that is going to screw me over. That I'm going to be on the wrong side of it. LSU is one of those teams. We'll wait till the end of June, the very end of June, the beginning of July before we do the SEC. But I got a feeling that LSU is going to do the opposite of whatever I say they're going to do. Everybody is a firm believer in Nussmeier. I'm not. Why aren't I? What is wrong with me? I don't know what's wrong with me. Something is wrong with me. So LSU, I might be in trouble with the Tigers. Congo is in the house. Andrew Creel, Caleb Ramirez, Prof, John Teal, Oregon State, Washington State. Let's go. We will hit Oregon State, Washington State in the G5 with our final predictions second, third week in July. Maskin Rudolph, Rock and Rant is in the house. Randy Taylor, Skaven, yes. Hello, Mad Gopher, G, B, R, Kyle Visser, Thomas, Roll Tide, KS Bear Fan, Expedition Greg, Charles M, SMU will win the ACC this year. Where do I have SMU? Where do I have the Mustangs. We'll see. We'll see. There is a big question mark on SMU this year. One of their units looks kind of weak to me. Not kind of. It's very highly questionable. So we'll see where I have the SMU Mustangs. Charlie Atwood is in the house. Charles M says LSU will win the SEC. BR 7062 is here. RW Lewis, the legend, the PATC legend, Duke will win the ACC. Where do I have Duke? Well, I've got Duke higher than I definitely have them higher, finishing higher than Vegas. That is for sure. That is for sure. Matt Higgins is in the house. Roll Tide, the Big Lubbock. Stephen Vitt, Amazing Blue is in the house. Jeff Kais, good evening, PATC. Good evening, Jeff. I'm glad you come on in. Ricky is in the house. Friends, call me Sean. Knowles beat SMU a second time for the ACC title. The Buckshot Kid is here. Expedition Greg the Cooler. Not right now. Not right now. Not right now. I'm Greg the Heater. Luke Fletcher is in the house. Don't sleep on the Jackets. Let's see if I did sleep on the Jackets. Let's see if I did. Question mark. That defense is going to have to be better than they were last year. The offense might even be a little bit better than they were last year, and their offense was terrific. We'll see where I've got the Jackets. The Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech. Gene Calderon, go Bears. If you've been watching the show, Gene, there is, this is the most interesting California Bears team in a long time. In a long time. Very, very interesting. Justin Wilcox. You know, there are teams in the ACC where the offense is ahead of the defense, and there's a defensive head coach. But then there is some teams where the defense is ahead of the offense, and it happens to be an offensive-minded head coach. It's like the script has been flipped on some of these programs. Now, a lot of these is a first-year, second-year head coach. Now, California, whose defense has been very good over the last 5 years, they took a little bit of a dip last year. That defense has got to get back up. The offense is going to be very interesting. P. Litt is in the house. Anthony Carlson, Mr. Sparty. Matt Neeson, go Cyclones. Cyclones is in the house. Randy Taylor was calling it a fix. Saturday night, the fix was in. Mowing Vision, Mr. Buckeye is the PATC World Champion. Trivia, college football trivia. The second time we do this trivia game, we're going to announce it ahead, like 3 or 4 days ahead. We're going to have it all scheduled so people know when it's coming. We didn't have a big crowd on Saturday night. We never do during the off season. But the people that were there loved it. So we're going to do it again. Mowing Vision, hopefully he has the opportunity to defend his championship. I got a feeling that someone's going to take it away from the Buckeye. So next time we will advertise it way out in advance so everybody can get ready. and go for it. PATC World Championship. Kyle Visser is in the house. Movie Time Blues. Scrappin' Wolf. Cope Cop is in the house. Boomer, Sooner. And Forks Up. Soap is here. Xmas is here. Bearcat Steve is here. ACC Championship, Louisville and North Carolina State. Kevin Pryor is in the house. Thanks for coming on in, Kevin. Random Tees, Wake Forest to the Big Ten. Tracy FSU, Gold Nose. CW2 is in the house. Go Buckeyes. Joaquin Morales is in the house. La K-Fan is here. Me versus Echo Chamber is here. The Evil Badger himself, Ryan Willie, is in the house. Kirk Bender, Mr. Colorado Buffalo, Richard L. Lisa Stanford is winning the ACC. I'm going to give you a little hint. I do not have Stanford winning the ACC. Derek Marie is in the house. Okay, Daniel is here. Stephen Webb is here. Crab Cakes and Football is here. Clay Johnson. Wow, a lot of people here. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do the ACC predictions. And then we're going to be talking about an article that came out of the Denver Post. Is there a mid-major super conference? Could it happen? Will it happen? Remember in the Holy Smokes Theater, Pac-2 and Friends, it's the matinee show that has been going on in the Holy Smokes Theater. Remember the 6 universities that are up on the stage. Well, the author of the article, Keeler, out of the Denver Post, he was speculating that maybe there should be, or at least a former athletic director of Colorado State, possibly maybe should be, a mid-major super conference being built. And you know what? If I was writing that article, I would have written basically the same thing, maybe a little bit. There's a little bit difference between the chatter that we've been hearing and the article that was written, but a very, very interesting article out of the Denver Post. We're going to be going to that before we get to your phone calls, before we get to your membership and super chats. We're going to be going through that as well. Immaculate is in the house as well. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, the official. I'm not taking a step back. I'm not walking away. I will take my L. I will take my W's, baby. Just like last year when I predicted Florida State to win it all in the ACC. I'm going to nail it again this year. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Number 17. We're going from 17 down to 1. I will get to your comments after I go through this. We'll get to your phone calls later in the show. You can let me have it. You can let me have it. Here we go. Number 17. And I believe the gap between 16 and 17, I think it's quite large, to be honest with you. Other than Anthony, the quarterback, 1,958 yards last year, 13 touchdowns. Colandrea versus Tony Muskett for the quarterback, QB1. Colandrea is going to get it. He showed some spark last year, but the running game was absolutely bad. It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. Running back Kobe Pace ran for 382 yards last year, 3.1 average. 3.1 average. Xavier Brown, 2 years ago in 2022, he showed something. Xavier Brown ran for a couple hundred yards, had an injury. There are high hopes for Xavier Brown. Get this, they've got 4 returning starters on the O-line, and my question is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? I don't think it's a good thing at all. Virginia's offense was brutal last year. They got transferred Chris Tyree of Notre Dame, wide receiver. I talked about him last year. He couldn't get it done for Notre Dame. That's why they brought the youth. That's why they were counting on freshmen last year. Because of guys like Chris Tyree. Andre Green, the transfer from North Carolina. They're depending on wide receivers who transferred in who did not produce in the way people were expecting. This defense was ranked dead last. Dead last. Their offense was bad. Colandrea and Musket, the quarterback battle. Musket has been there for I don't know how long. Colandrea is coming into his sophomore year. I'm expecting Anthony Colandrea to get the job. He is a spark plug, but that is the only spark I see. The only spark I see for the Virginia Cavaliers. They are 17 with a bullet. A big gap between 16 and 17. Virginia may not win a game this year. That's how down I am on the Virginia Cavaliers. Iowa, the great receiver Stanford, number 13. I've got Stanford, number 16. Ashton Daniels, the quarterback, he showed something at the end of last year. He did. He showed something. Now, I am not sure. Elijah Brown, there's a 4-star quarterback. I don't know if, I believe it's going to be Ashton Daniels at the beginning of the season, and he did show something. They've got nothing really returning in the running game. Cedric Irvin, 113 yards. Io Manor, the great wide receiver, over 1,000 yards. That's the man you're looking at your screen right now. The defense last year ranked 129th in the country. They gave up an average of 461 yards. And there's no end in sight. Colin Wright was a great cornerback, very good cornerback. He leads the secondary. It's a very young team. Troy Taylor's taken over. Stanford, they've got a big rebuilding job. They do have a really good recruiting class being mounted up right now. But I could not put Stanford any higher than 16 in their first year in the ACC. Could not do it. They start this season at Syracuse. No, they don't. But one of their important first games is at Syracuse. September 20 at Clemson. September 28 at Notre Dame. October 12th. They were 3-9 last year. It's going to be difficult for them to get to 3-9 this year. Number 15, Wake Forest. Wake Forest. Jasheen Davis, the man you're looking at. There is high anticipation. High anticipation. Coming out the edge. Creating all types of havoc in the backfield. He's probably going to be the star player this year. Now, Desmond Claiborne, the running back, was good last year. 583 yards. They were 4-8 this year. Important early games. September 14th, Ole Miss. October 5th, North Carolina State. October 12th, Clemson. North Carolina State and Clemson. Back-to-back weeks. The quarterback is probably going to be Hank Bachmeier. I used to call him Heisman Hank. I watched his recruiting very carefully, and it seems like 10 years ago. Coming out of California. He ended up in Boise State. Had one real good year there. Then he lost his quarterback's job, and then he went to Louisiana Tech last year. It didn't quite go the way he wanted to go. Now he's at Wake Forest. It's Michael Kern versus Hank Bachmeier. Michael Kern's been at Wake Forest forever. It's probably going to go to Hank Bachmeier. Taylor Morin, the position wide receiver, he's been there forever. Because of the COVID season, he gets another year. He's got 163 catches. The great possession receiver in the ACC, one of the good ones. Xavier Respro, of course, Miami. We'll talk about him in a little bit down the road. Taylor Morin, an incredible possession wide receiver. Secondary is a complete mystery at Wake Forest. Complete mystery. No one knows what's going to happen. They were terrible last year. They got a whole bunch of new guys. I don't know. Wake Forest, I could not have them go any higher than number 15th, number 14th, number 14th, ACC. Konata Mumfield. They got him in the transfer portal a couple years ago, out of the MAC conference. He has produced for Pittsburgh. Real good wide receiver. Pittsburgh went 3-9 last year. They're at Cincinnati. At Cincinnati, September 7th. We're going to learn a lot about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati on September 7th. They go play West Virginia in Morgantown, September 14th. Backyard brawl. Now, I haven't seen a lot of Nate Yarnell, the quarterback. What I've seen, I am not all that impressed. But he's been named the starter. He's been named the starter. There is no quarterback controversy at Pittsburgh. Eli Holstein, a legend in high school, went to Alabama, transferred out of Alabama, went to Pittsburgh, but he's quarterback number 2. Narduzzi has already made the official announcement. Nate Yarnell is the starting quarterback. They've got a new offensive coordinator. That's a pretty interesting guy, Cade Bell. He came from Western Carolina. Then they went and grabbed the top 2 wide receivers in the portal out of Western Carolina. So they feel that they've got a pretty good trio of wide receivers. Mumfield and the 2 guys from Western Carolina. We shall see. Last year, I don't know if Yarnell is going to be able to get him the ball. Last year, the defense was poor. They're young. They're inexperienced. And Narduzzi is a defensive-minded head coach, and the Pittsburgh defense is very poor. Now, Ben Sauls is a very good kicker. They don't have a kicking problem at Pittsburgh. Ben Sauls is the man. Pittsburgh, number 14. Number 13, the spark plug, Thomas Castellano, the quarterback. The quarterback. He ran over 1,000 yards last year. The spark plug. He's gonna need to stay healthy. He's gonna need to play. I believe in him, right? I believe in Bill O'Brien, It's going to take Bill O'Brien some time. I believe enough in Bill O'Brien and Thomas Castellano for have them number 13. A lot of people have them 14, 15, 16, 17. I've got Boston College 13. They went 7-6 last year. They beat SMU in the Fenway Bowl. Kyle Robichaud, the transfer, running back. Trayshawn Ward, a running back. This is his third team. Oklahoma State, Florida State. Wide receiver Lewis Bond caught 52 passes. New defensive coordinator Tim Lewis. Defensive line was not good last year with pressure. No pressure. The secondary is full of transfers. So again, there's a lot of question marks on the defensive side of the ball for Boston College, but they should be able to score some points. We got Boston College at number 13. Number 12. Syracuse Orange. Kyle McCord. Holy smokes. Over 3,700 yards passing for the Buckeyes last year. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But that's not all that what they've got they got more. LaQuinn Allen, the great running back, over 1,000 yards last year. 9 touchdowns. So they've got some hope, quarterback, running back. And then they brought in new defensive coordinator, Elijah Robinson. Fran Brown, the new head coach. Bringing in Kyle McCord was a big deal. But internally, when it comes to the college football landscape, when it comes to coaches, Elijah Robinson has all the credibility in the world. Coming out of Texas A&M, he was the guy that was given the most credit for whatever Texas A&M was able to do under Jimbo Fisher. It was Elijah Robinson that got it done. This was a big move from Fran Brown. Now, we're gonna learn a lot. Early, Syracuse played Georgia Tech September 7th. At North Carolina State, October 12th. Syracuse finished 6-7 last year. The Orange, I've got them in 12th place. Number 11, Duke, the Blue Devils, Malik Murphy. He should be getting more shine than he is. People should be talking about him more. I know he hasn't played much. He's barely played at all. But the reason why Malik Murphy is not the starting quarterback at Texas, because Texas has the number 1 rated high school class quarterback in Quinn Ewers, and then they did it again with Manning, Arch Manning. That's the only reason this cat isn't your starting quarterback at Duke. They play at Northwestern, September 7th. North Carolina, September 28th. At Miami, November 2. At NC State, November 9th. Jaquez Moore. Now, I've talked a lot about Jordan Waters. I love how Jordan Waters ran the ball for Duke. And, of course, he transferred to North Carolina State. But Jaquez Moore, man. Number 9, watch him out there. I think it was Clemson. He scored that touchdown. He went, was it from like the 12-yard line? I see it in my head. Took it outside, scored on Clemson. It was on the far left side of the TV screen, up high and up in the corner. He beat everybody to the pylons. Hopefully Lewis remembers. That was Jaquez Moore. 674 yards rushing. 5.8 average. In 2022, 508 yards, 6.4 yards per rush. Jaquez Moore and Malik Murphy. And then you got Jordan Moore, the wide receiver. 122 catches over the last 2 years. So even though Duke lost some guys, if Malik Murphy is the real deal Holyfield, they're going to do better than 11th in the conference. Now, Malik Murphy has barely played. The O-line lost some guys. It's the worry point for Duke coming into this year. New coach, of course, Manny Diaz, Trey Freeman, and Nick Morris. They love their linebackers. Manny Diaz, the offense is probably ahead of the defense, and Manny Diaz is a defensive-minded head coach. Like I said at the beginning, you see a lot of that this year among the ACC football programs. Number 10. Now I'm going to get it here. I'm going to get it here. A lot of people are going to say, Greg, your cheese have slipped off your cracker. You are wrong on this. Greg, you are wrong. I don't know, guys. Maybe I should have had this team 11. Maybe I should have had them do-si-do with Duke. Number 10, North Carolina. I'm not seeing it. Now, they were 8-5 last year. They lost 30-10 in the Mayo Bowl. They've got a big game, that Thursday night game, August 29th. They're coming into Minnesota. Of course, we'll be doing that game. They play Duke September 28th. They play at home against Georgia Tech October 28th. They lost to Georgia Tech 46-42 in that incredible game. I think they're going to lose to Georgia Tech again. I don't know, guys. Omarion Hampton is the real deal Holyfield. Over 1,500 yards. Almost 6 yards per carry. This guy is fantastic. Connor Harrell, he's appeared in 5 games, the quarterback. Now, I do like their backup running back. A lot of Tar Heels probably don't know who he is. Darwin Barlow. Came out of, I watched his recruiting carefully. I thought he was going to be a great running back in college. He came out of the Fort Worth area. Went to TCU. He ended up going to USC, transferring to USC, and now he's at North Carolina. And I just don't think he's ever been given the opportunity. Yes, Jeff Collins. I see what you're saying, Luke Fletcher. Jeff Collins is the new defensive coordinator. Camion Rucker is their rush defensive end who they're counting on to shine. But there's Elijah Huzzy is the lead in the secondary. The defense was not good last year. The defense has not been good under Max Brown. But Jeff Collins, who was a head coach just recently, I could not have them higher than number 10, and I almost had them lower than 10. The wide receivers are going to take a big hit from last year. J.J. Jones is about the only guy coming back. I've got this team ahead of Carolina. Number 9. California Bears. A very interesting team. They play at Auburn September 7th. And you know who that is on your screen. That is Jaden Ott. I've got him ranked number 3rd, the 3rd best running back in the country. 1,300 yards last year. He is absolutely sensational. Watch a California game, watch Ott. Fernando Mendoza, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, the quarterback. Another spark plug. He was pretty good last year. He did a Cam Ward, though. He fumbled the ball too many times. Threw a bunch of interceptions, too. But it was his first year playing as a starter. and I think he is going to be real good this year. Now, Justin Wilcox did bring in the transfer quarterback from North Texas, Chandler Rogers, who was really good at North Texas. But this has got to be Fernando Mendoza's team with Jaden Ott. Grizel, the wide receiver, pretty good. But you know what? They brought in Tobias Merriweather. Again, another Notre Dame wide receiver that transferred this year. Now, I was expecting big things from Tobias Merriweather. He only caught 14 balls last year for Notre Dame. I talked about him at the beginning of the year last year. I thought he was gonna hit it big with Sam Hartman and all what they were doing at Notre Dame. He's got to produce at California. They're going to be expecting. They need him to produce. They need him to be the big guy, the guy that goes deep, to take the cap off the defense. The defense, California's defense took a dip last year. They got some good linebackers, David Reese, Xavier Carlton, and they've got a great safety in Craig Woodson. He's the leader of the defense. Again, Justin Wilcox, defensive-minded. California's been a defensive-minded football program, but this year their offense is better than their defense. You see that a lot in this ACC 2024 season. Number 8. The Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech, Haynes King. I've already taken one L on Haynes King. Just like I took the L on Bo Nix last year. Just like I took the L on Neil Brown, the coach of West Virginia, last year. Was one of my L's. Haynes King, I had him written off. Shame on me. Georgia Tech 7-6 last year. They defeated UCF 30-17 in the Gasparilla Bowl. They played Florida State in Dublin, Ireland, August 24th. At UNC, October 12th, at home against Notre Dame, at home against Miami. October 19th, November 9th, Haynes King, the quarterback, 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns, but 16 interceptions. Too many interceptions, but they had offense everywhere on the team last year. Jamal Haynes, the running back. Remember the name. Jamal Haynes. Over 1,000 yards on the ground. 6.1 yards per rush. 7 touchdowns. Their wide receivers, Singleton and Rutherford, both caught about 40 balls. They spread it around. And here's the kicker of it all. This offense that was a machine last year. 4 of their starting offensive linemen are coming back for this year. They're absolutely stacked, but the defense needs to get better. They hired a whole bunch of new assistants on the defensive side of the ball. Georgia Tech gave up 221 yards on the ground last year, on average. That is unbelievably bad. Brent Key, yes, Brent Key. So, could I have Georgia Tech higher than 8? Maybe I could have had them at 7, but no higher than that. You've got to show a pulse on defense. We'll see what happens. Number 7. Now this team, number 7, needs to be a team that shows a pulse against big-time opponents. This team got absolutely blown out when playing the better squads in the ACC. They need to compete at a higher level. That is Virginia Tech Hokies, number 7. Finished 7-6 last year. They did get to a bowl game, and they won a bowl game. They beat Tulane 41-20 in the Military Bowl. They start off the season, Vanderbilt, September 7th. At Vanderbilt, at Miami, September 7th, September 27th. Tyrone Drones. That's the gentleman that you see on your screen. He threw for 2,085 yards. He ran for 818 yards. 17 touchdowns. 3 interceptions. This is the man right here. All the hopes, all the dreams. Kevin Pryor says he can be special. Yes, he can. He might be very special. Now, you got to bump up that completion percentage a little bit. It's at 58.2%. Bump it up just a little bit. Bayshaw Tutton, the running back, over 800 yards. They got a good trio of wide receivers. Felton, Lane, and Gosnell, over 100 catches last year among the 3. And according to just about everybody, they've got one of the best cornerback combinations on defense in the country. Dorian Strong and Mansour Delane. Both coming back this year. So Virginia Tech's got players all over the field. They're, in my opinion, they're more balanced than Georgia Tech. So I've got Virginia finishing ahead of Georgia Tech in the ACC. It's probably going to be a bunch of tiebreakers. But I got Virginia Tech. I've got Virginia Tech number 7. Number 6. Louisville. Now, a lot of people have them ranked higher. I get it. Louisville Cardinal fans are not going to be happy with me. Awesome Lawsome Clip is not going to be happy with me. Jeff Brom's a good head coach. Louisville was unbelievable last year. They were way ahead of schedule last year. Tyler Shuck, the quarterback. He's been around forever. He's thrown for 4,600 yards, but he seems like he's been around forever. Injuries, and can he get it done with Jeff Brom as his head coach? Well, he's playing for the right guy. They went 10-4 last year. They kind of hit a wall at the end of the year. They lost to USC in the Holiday Bowl, 42-28. They've got the running back transfer from Miami, Donald Chaney. Chris Bell, the wide receiver, he caught 29 passes last year, but they think he's going to be a superstar this year. In their spring football game, Chris Bell went a little crazy. First play of the game, he took the ball 70 yards for a touchdown. So Chris Bell, the wide receiver. Ron English, their defensive coordinator, says this is the deepest secondary I've ever had. Led by the man you're seeing on your screen, Quincy Riley. Tayon Holloway came from UNC, transfer from North Carolina. TJ Quinn, their leading tackler from last year, came back, a linebacker. They've got another linebacker, Stanquan Clark, who they absolutely love. I believe it was a freshman last year. Again, Louisville has some balance on the team. Why don't I have Louisville ranked higher than 6? Because of Tyler Shuck. I don't know, man. It's tough. It is absolutely tough. I don't know about the quarterback, guys. I don't know if he can stay healthy. I don't know how that's going to work. So number 5. Number 5, there it is. SMU. Easy schedule. Now they play Florida State September 28th. They play BYU September 6th. TCU, 2 Big 12 teams, on September 6th and September 21. They went 11-3 last year. Quarterback Preston Scott, over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I will say this about SMU, and I said it at the beginning of the season. I mean, not the beginning of the season, the beginning of the show. SMU has one, in my opinion, huge question mark, and that is their running backs. Bashard Smith and L.A. Johnson, these are guys who we don't know who in the backfield is going to take it over for SMU. Jordan Hudson, real good wide receiver. This is the guy that you see on the screen, R.J. Maryland. Great tight end. He's just on the cusp of greatness, in my opinion. They were a top 15 in the country last year in defense. I said Preston Scott, I meant Stone. Sorry about that. Elijah Roberts is the defensive end rush. And Alexander Kilgore, they call him the dynamic duo. And they've got a great kicker, Colin Rogers. Colin Rogers, great kicker. Number 5, yes, I'm getting a lot of heat in the chat. Remember this prediction, ladies and gentlemen. Greg the Heater. SMU, number 5 in the ACC. They've got the easiest schedule in the ACC. That's going to help them. Number 4, Phil Maffa. Clemson Tigers. Number 4. They finished 9-4 last season. They finished hot last season. They were 4-4 at one point. They beat Kentucky in the Gator Bowl. They played Georgia August 31st. That's going to be rough for Clemson. They play North Carolina State September 21st. They play FSU on October 5th. I'm not a believer in Cade Klubnik. Christopher Viznini, their backup quarterback, a lot of Clemson people love him. But right now, it's Cade Klubnik. Phil Maffa is the running back last year. The guy on your screen, when we did our predictions, I said Phil Maffa has to get the ball more. He has to get the ball more. And he did. He ran for 965 yards last year. He's going to run well over 1,000 yards this year. 13 touchdowns. They've got a very good tight end. 50 catches. Brenningstool. The wide receivers, Tyler Brown, Antonio Williams. Again, do they have a superstar at wide receiver? I don't know. Maybe Antonio Williams. 2 years ago, he was real good. I think he came off an injury last year. Coming off an injury from last year. Now, the defensive coordinator, Wes Goodwin, he left off for Brent Venables, right? Brent Venables had a great defense at Clemson. So has Wes Goodwin. R.J. Mickens leads the secondary. The defense was top 10 in just about everything. Clemson's last year kicking game was horrendous. Remember last year when Clemson, Dabo Swinney was asking people to come from their science lab to kick the ball? They were trying to find a kicker. So they're going to have a true freshman kicker this year, Nolan Hauser. So true freshman kicker, Clemson. We'll see how that works out for the Clemson Tigers. Now, the next three teams, in my opinion, all have a great shot. All have a great shot to get to the playoffs. I know ACC is not supposed to have three teams that get to the playoffs. And I'm not saying they're going to have three teams get to the playoffs. But I think all three of these have a real good shot. Number three. Francisco Mauigoa, the linebacker from Miami Hurricanes. Of course, his brother is the great offensive lineman, Francis Mauigoa. Freshman last year. He was incredible. Miami's got a lot of talent, ladies and gentlemen. They've got a lot of talent. So how could I possibly have Miami 3? We'll get to it in a moment. There was 7-6 last year under Mario Cristobal. They should have been better. That record should have been better. We all know that. They lost to Rutgers 31-24 in the Pinstripe Bowl. They start the season at Florida. At home against VT Virginia Tech on 9/27, at Louisville October 19th. They're at home against Florida State October 26th. Cam Ward, over 3,700 yards, Washington State. 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. We know about his fumbling problems. Can't keep the ball too long in the pocket. Can't keep the ball too low. He's got small hands. Hopefully Cam Ward can figure it out. They've got a great running back in Damian Martinez, transferred from Oregon State. 1,185 yards, 9 touchdowns. Mark Fletcher, RB2 from Miami. Another 9 touchdowns last year. Xavier Respro, the great possession wide receiver. 85 catches, over 1,000 yards. They've got a great offensive line. Possibly the best offensive line in the country. Francis Mauigoa. They got Jalen Rivers. Big time left tackle. You can go on and on and on and on. Reuben Bain Jr. Reuben Bain Jr. as a freshman last year, he tore it up. 7.5 sacks. Darrell Porter leading the secondary. So why do I have Miami 3 and not 2 and not 1? Well, I got to see it from Mario Cristobal. I was extremely disappointed in him last year. Not just to do with Georgia Tech, not just to do with a couple of the games. I'm talking about the whole year. You got Cam Ward going over there. Great talent. Damian Martinez. Miami's got the talent. But I couldn't have them number 1. I couldn't have them number 2. I just couldn't do it. Got Miami number 3. Now, if Mario Cristobal shows me something, shows the country something, Miami's going to be right there for the championship race. They could be going to the ACC championship game. They could be going to the playoffs. They've got the talent. Number two, DJU. August 24th, Dublin, Ireland, Georgia Tech. September 28th at SMU. October 5th, Clemson. That game is at home. The defense is going to lead Florida State, even more than DJU. Patrick Payton, Joshua Farmer, Daryl Jackson's going to play this year. Defensive tackle. Marvin Jones, we don't quite know what we're going to get. Transfer from Georgia. DJ Lundy. Ventrell Cypress, we know what he gives you. Kezai Holmes had a very good spring football game. I saw him truck that guy. I saw him bowl over that guy, the Florida State defender, for a touchdown. Toafalili, Lawrence Toafalili, he's finally going to get his opportunity. He's finally going to get his opportunity. He's averaged over 6.2 yards per rush. He's been there for like 4 years. Kentron Patier, they love him. They love what he's done in the spring camp. He hasn't done much in his career wide receiver yet, but they loved him. They love him in spring. Hakeem Williams, Malik Benson, the Alabama transfer. DJ Ungo Ungale. He went up in my eyes. He went up at Oregon State. Can he take it to another level? He may not have to win the ACC. If he can do what he did at Oregon State, Corvallis to Tallahassee, they might be good enough to win the ACC again this year. However, I do not have them winning the ACC this year. I've got Florida State going to the ACC championship game. But my heart has been captured. I said at the beginning of this show, I'm going with my heart, baby. I'm keeping my brain out of this. I'm absolutely in love with this team. Kevin Concepcion, the great wide receiver, North Carolina State, and he must be sitting there. This guy produced when he didn't have the talent around him. Suddenly he does. Dave Doran's got all the talent put around Mr. Kevin Concepcion. They went 9-4 last year. They lost to K-State in the Pop-Tart Bowl. They played Tennessee on September 7th in Charlotte. And ladies and gentlemen, on September 7th, North Carolina State's going to show the PATC community what the fat guy from Minnesota already knows. Tennessee, September 7th. At Clemson, September 21st. Grayson McCall has been spectacular since he's arrived at North Carolina State. He was spectacular at Coastal Carolina. But nothing has changed. In fact, he's been a machine. He's been an absolute machine. He was a machine during the spring game. During the camp, he's leading the team. Grayson McCall is going to show a lot of people what he's about. The great running back from Duke, Jordan Waters. They got Noah Rogers, the transfer from Ohio State, freshman last year. He looks fantastic in the spring game. He's ready to go. He's already ready to go. With him and Concepcion, and it's not just about that. It's just not just about that. It's the transfer from Connecticut, Justin Jolly, the tight end. Tony Gibson, great defensive coordinator, great coach on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a great punter. They've got a great kicker. They've got a great special teams. Aiden White leads the secondary. They've got no weakness. They've got no weakness. North Carolina State is going to win the ACC championship game. They're going to go to the playoffs probably as a 3rd seed or 4th seed. So congratulations to North Carolina State Wolfpack. That is my 2024 ACC predictions for all 17 teams. Holy smokes. Justin Lucas, he's just fine. He's okay. He knows. Justin Lucas knows. He knows. He knows I'm Greg the Heater. He knows that North Carolina State is going to win the ACC finally. Finally. He's going to win it. North Carolina State. Okay. Before we get to your phone calls, before you rip on me, we got to go through one more story. Denver Post, how can Colorado State Rams survive a new NCAA world, leave the Mountain West for a mid-major super conference? Ex-Colorado State Athletic Director says, what's next? You line up the best of the rest. Is there going to be a mid-major super conference forming? Well, that's kind of what the Pac-2 and Friends Holy Smokes matinee show is all about. The ghosts of Canvas Stadium debt are waving receipts in my face and crackling as I type this, but hear Jack Graham out. Listen to Jack Graham. While the Blue Bloods are putting the chess pieces in place for a college football super conference, you line up the best of the rest. Oregon State, Washington State, San Diego State, Boise State, CSU, Air Force. By the way, those are the teams that are on the stage in the Holy Smokes Theater. Army, Navy, Tulane, and UConn, which makes a whole lot of sense. We have them. We have Navy and Tulane in the Holy Smokes Theater, based on what we've been told. We do not have UConn. That is the one outlier between what is going on in the Holy Smokes Theater and what Jack Graham is proposing here in this article. Get private equity to foot the bill. The Wild Card Conference presented by Bain Capital. Crazy? Heck yeah, it is. But crazy left the station about 5 stops north. If someone came forward and said, we're going to form this new conference, the Rams alum and former Colorado State athletic director told me last week, and we're not going to just fund the conference. We'll distribute money to the schools for not just name, image, and likeness funds, but funds that can pay players and a replacement for the broadcasting shortfalls. If I were a private equity guy, I would underwrite that. I would look into it. College football is the show business, end of higher education. In the NCAA's call to settle the class action suit named for ex-Arizona State swimmer Grant House was strictly a business decision. It was also a kick in the teeth for the little guys who barely clinging to the NCAA's big table, none which were specifically named as defendants in the House original complaint. Only now they've got to help big brothers everywhere pay the tab. In effect, a tax is being imposed upon the group of 5 schools, Graham grumbled. Published estimates peg the cost for a Mountain West school, if the settlement is approved, at roughly $500,000 per year, money that will be withheld from typical NCAA distributions such as men's and women's basketball payouts. But the bigger hurdle for the likes of Colorado State, Wyoming, or Air Force is how they tackle paying student athletes in years to come. Yahoo Sports spitballed the added cost for a Power 5 program going forward at $30 million per year. That's going to be a tough bar for the Rams to touch, let alone clear. First, Colorado State's staring at an average of $12.2 million in annual bond payments for Canvas through 2050, an investment that was Graham's pet project. And secondly, because $30 million is about half of what the department reported at total athletic revenues, $64.3 million, 2022-2023, its last audit. This is, and finally, so you've got to find real capital from an external source, Graham said. Most of the presidents I've met don't have the vision. A new conference, that's called a business risk, which most of them don't understand. Crazy? No doubt. But so crazy, it just might work. I don't know. I don't know about this bringing in private capital to fund this new conference. That is a whole lot of risk. And I think some of those schools, I don't know. But I would be shocked, as we have reported to you here in the last few months, when we opened up the matinee, Pac-2 and Friends, Oregon State, Washington State, evaluating with their media partners, Fox, basically. I would be absolutely shocked if this conference that Washington State and Oregon State create is, I would be shocked if it's not a Frankenstein conference. I would be shocked if they were not able to, if the conference was anything different than taking some schools from the Mountain West, possibly a couple from the AAC. I don't think anybody sees it at this point, where Washington State and Oregon State just take all 12 Mountain West schools and have a reverse merger. A Pac-12, a Pac-14. I don't see it happen. I think we're gonna be a witness to some really heavy drama, heavy disruption in G5. What is happening in the Power 4 conferences is going to happen in the G5 conferences. The economic pressure for consolidation. These schools wanting to be in the most powerful mid-major conference they could possibly be in football, to help them qualify for the playoffs, to get the most media money, most exposure, best recruitment, best chance to get the best recruits. I think we're going to see a lot of disruption. And I think it starts with Oregon State, Washington State, Fox Sports, trying to figure all this out, seeing who's interested. I don't know about this private equity being a part of it. I have my doubts on that. But this was Jack Graham, the former athletic director of Colorado State. Let's get to your phone calls. Tell me how wrong I got it. Tell me your ACC predictions. The number is open, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Give me a call and let me know You don't have to tell me how wrong I got it. You can say, Greg, you are brilliant. You got them all correct. You can say that.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
Hey, what's up, Greg?
I'm doing good.
This has become part of my routine after I deal with my kids, right? Respectfully, your list was horrible. So I want to keep this short and simple and for the most part factual. I would start the worst team this year in the ACC, without a doubt, will be Wake Forest. Wake Forest lost a lot of talent. They run a very unique offense. They bring in a guy who lost his job at 2 locations, Boise and Louisiana Tech.
Hank Bachmeier, Louisiana Tech.
Yep, Bachmeier. That offense, he doesn't scramble well. He doesn't move in the pocket well, and that's going to hurt them. They're typically undersized. So I think, and their coaches towards the end of his career too. I think he has a couple more years. And last year, I think Clawson kind of checked out. But that's neither here. I think Virginia has continuity. The coach has been on that team for like 3 years. I think 4 years. He's on a contract year. They are motivated to do well. I think they'll win 5 games or so. UVA will not be the worst team. And if you watch them, they were a competitive team. They lost a lot because I think they're short on talent, but they're a competitive team. And I'll just stop at that in terms of the bottom. At the top. So I like the Seminoles. You
like the Seminoles.
However,
got it.
I like this. However, I think Miami has acquired enough talent to offset the deficiency in coaching. Right? I think it's going to be a Miami, Florida State at the top. NC State, the best way I can put NC State will be this year's Louisville, in a sense that their schedule is arguably the weakest schedule outside of Virginia Tech. Right? They play the first 4 games. They play Tennessee at a neutral site in Charlotte.
Yep.
They play at Clemson 2 weeks later. After that, Northern Illinois, Wake Forest, Syracuse, all at home, at Cal, Stanford, Duke, on the last 2, Georgia Tech and North Carolina.
Yeah.
Horrible schedule, but it lines up well. They should be 9-3, 10-2, right?
They're going to be right
Virginia
there.
Tech.
The Wolfpack are going to be right there.
Yeah, their schedule is horrible. Virginia Tech, same as North Carolina State. They play at Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers. They play 1 tough game on the road against Miami, followed by Stanford, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. They play Clemson at home, which is going to be a tough game for them. With Clemson's defense, you're going to have to throw to beat them. Drones can't throw the ball. They have an amazing offensive line, 2 deep at running back. They have a quarterback that's going to get close to 1,000 yards running the ball. You're not going to run that type of offense and beat a Clemson defense. It's not going to happen. But I think they're going to be 3 or 4. And I'll end it with this. Florida State, or 2 things before I get to Florida State. SMU, you are going to be so embarrassed about putting SMU at 5th. You may cancel your show for a couple of days. And here's the thing. I think SMU is super talented on the perimeter. They got Jalen Knighton, the backup 3rd string for Miami, that came with Rhett Lashley to SMU. L.J. Johnson from Texas A&M, he was a 5-star. They have another 5-star running back.
L.J. Johnson and Rashad Smith, they haven't produced, though. None of these guys have produced.
Agreed. Here's the thing about SMU. I've watched SMU. I watch a lot of college football. I watched the Boston College SMU game.
Yeah.
Boston College ran for almost 300 yards against them. You know why? SMU does not have a 300-pounder on the defensive line.
Yeah.
Boston College and a lot of ACC teams have 6'5", 320, 315 linemen. You cannot stand up. I don't care how much talent you have on the perimeter. You cannot stand up if your offensive line and defensive line are overmatched and undersized. I think it'll take 2 to 3 years for Rhett Lashley to get the depth he needs, and they need to resign. I think he's up for a contract extension in a couple of years. They need to resign him. But Dallas is a great metropolitan area for high school football, so they will get the talent, no doubt. They do not have the depth. They do not have the size to compete.
First of all, you talked about schedules early in your call. Check out SMU's schedule, which we.
Oh, their schedule is
RJ Maryland. Their tight end was injured.
I got you.
Stone and Maryland all day long on the ACC. SMU's going to score a lot of points.
Here's the thing. I don't think so. You know, I don't think so, Greg. Respectfully, when you play in a G4 or a G5 conference, you can take weeks off. I don't care if you're in the worst Power 5 conference in the Big 12. You have to bring it every week. UCF, BYU, and Cincy was in for a rude awakening. They don't have the guys up front just yet. And I'm telling you, Greg, SMU, their schedule might be weak to you based off brands, but when you look at the X and O's,
it's weak to me because they're not playing who they could be. I mean, in regards to consensus of who's on the top of the ACC, they're not playing a lot of those teams. That's what I mean by that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And what I'm saying is, even the middle of the pack and lower ACC teams will freaking take SMU to the shed on the offensive and defensive line. Like that Boston College game, Boston College didn't have a lot of their players. I think SMU had a backup. Jennings was their quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, because Stone was injured. I think Preston Stone was injured. But the line play to me was quite obvious that they are just not ready. And if you play them against, let's say, a UVA or a Wake, which I think are some of the worst teams in terms of upfront, they'll still struggle. Even like Pitt is a horrible offensive team. But on the defense and offensive lines, Narduzzi has grown men. And I think and I hope, for your sake, I hope I'm wrong, but I promise you, midway through the season, SMU is going to be complaining about injuries and lack of depth. And when you move up, it just happens. And my last point before I get out of here, Florida State is by far the deepest, most talented program in the ACC. Second is Miami, but Florida State is a little deeper. Now, what separates Florida State from pretty much every team in the ACC, their coach is a tried and true coach. He's won in a multitude of ways. I think you will see a different FSU team. It'll be a run. It'll be a typical Mike Norvell team. They run 3-4 different backs, and then they bore you to death with running, zones, and counters, and then they hit you over the top with a 30, 40-yard bomb. I think that Florida State will be 12-1, 13-0 at the end of the season, and I don't think they're better than last year's team. I just have that much faith in Norvell and his ability to win games. He's won it every step he's been, and I just think he's going to do it and do it again. But with that being said, thank you very much for being vulnerable enough to put out your ACC list, even though I agree with pretty much every list. But thank you very much for having me on.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. You got it.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Great call. Great call. He let me have it. BJ let me have it. Now, SMU.
Call from
John Grove.
John, Mr. Grove, can you hold on for just a moment, please?
Yes, of course.
I got a feeling I'm gonna get hammered all night long, which is just fine. That's what I'm here for. SMU. I love the BYU Cougar fans. I love Nathan Brown, Big 12 Mafia, all that stuff. BYU plays SMU at SMU on a Friday night, September 6th on ESPN2. So BJ and all the doubters that are in the chat room, watch SMU BYU September 6th. We're on June. It's June 10th right now. Whatever. ESPN. Hopefully you guys all forget that I said any of this. Anyways, Mr. Grove, thank you for the patience. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, quite frankly, now I'm just thinking about that SMU BYU game, and come to think about it now, I'm just thinking how detrimental BYU's early part of a season is. You go to SMU, you go to Wyoming as well, in which that's never easy as well, and then you start off conference play against a favorite in Kansas State for that matter. But
Yeah.
It is an ACC prediction video, a live show for that matter. So
Yeah.
I will stick to the ACC. I do want to talk about kind of a fall from grace that Clemson has had, and just looking at their schedule because early on, BJ brought up a few good points in terms of the schedules that several of the ACC teams have in terms of the easiest to the most difficult. Clemson just got dealt a terrible hand.
Yeah.
Starting on the road at Georgia, then you host Appalachian State the second week, because we've all known what happens with Appalachian State. They are FBS top 25 killers. They went to Michigan way back when, won. They beat Texas A&M a few years back. They beat North Carolina a few years back. I mean, that is very possible. And with what I've heard from Clemson in terms of lack of transfer portal production, they did not look impressive whatsoever at all besides the Florida State game last year. I've not seen any signs of progress or improvement from Kay Klubnik.
No.
So, it is very possible we could be staring at a 0-2 start for Clemson. And it doesn't even, one of the top four. Well, let me backtrack to what I said.
Yeah.
Because they got Stanford and NC State at home as well.
Yeah.
I think Stanford's going to finish last. Stanford has not been looking good lately.
Yeah.
They might have been the worst Power 5 team last season, along with Virginia. But you also host NC State, an NC State team that I'm not going to exactly reference to as the next Louisville, because Dave Doran has a lot of talent. It's kind of a blue-collar type of team that's always going to play with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
I think it's the kind of team where they're going to show up and win the games that they are supposed to, and not like Louisville, in which they just faltered late down the stretch, losing to the likes of Kentucky and a depleted USC team. So there's that. I think NC State is going to be up there. I think Florida State, Miami, and NC State will likely be sort of a top three teams. And then I'd probably put Virginia Tech, Clemson, and Louisville in Tier 2. And pardon me, because I think Virginia Tech's schedule's pretty easy for that matter as well. Not a whole lot of competition there. Plus, you get Clemson at home, and they're on a momentum streak as well. They just beat Tulane in a bowl game as well. So
now
the momentum's there for Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
As well.
Again, we're going to be doing a watch party. We're going to be doing that Dublin, Ireland, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. Okay, we're going to be doing that game, 9:00 in the morning, whatever, on August 24th. What do you think about that game? I mean, Florida State, they're absolutely stacked on defense. They have depth, but Georgia Tech, it's like Georgia Tech's offense was real good last year, and they're expected to take it to another level. So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In terms of the first game, I think just because you are right, Georgia Tech, kind of similar to Virginia Tech last year, they're kind of on a momentum spree a little bit. They're getting heavy upgrades on the offensive side. Their defense wasn't all too bad last year, for that matter, as well. They shut down UCF pretty well in their bowl game. So, I mean, it could be very interesting. Like you mentioned, it's a neutral site game. It's not being played in Tallahassee. I think if the game was being played in Tallahassee, I'd probably say Florida State by around 2 to 3 touchdowns. But I mean, Georgia Tech could be a team that could upset a team or two in the ACC. I don't necessarily think it's Florida State because Florida State has the better overall talent, but who knows? Anybody can win on any given Saturday.
Yeah. Beautiful call, Mr. Grove. I do appreciate it, sir.
And this is Kansas State fan, by the way.
Got it, yep.
I'm just embracing John Grove now.
John Grove. Got it. Appreciate it, John
There
Grove.
we go.
Thank you.
Of course. Have a good one, Greg.
You call back when we do the Big 12 next week.
Oh, oh my gosh. Greg, you better put out a valid list here, or I'm going to be coming out here like BJ and proving you.
I'm going to get hammered next week no matter what I do. So that's just the way it is. All right,
oh,
sir.
my gosh. All righty. Have a
it.
good one.
Yeah.
Now you're just, I'm not going to sleep well tonight. Have a good night.
Great call, John Grove. Excellent call. Excellent call. I am getting hammered tonight, just like I thought I would. Nobody is agreeing with my picks. No, not even the North Carolina State Wolfpack fans are agreeing with my picks. Immaculate, the Big 12 parity will be a nightmare for folks trying to predict. Well, I'm just the guy who can do it, Immaculate. I'm just the guy who can do it. I'm putting the finishing touches on my Big 12 predictions. Putting the finishing touches on it. Not going to let anything leak. Not going to say a word. Miami, was it Brother Monzone who asked the question? I think it was Brother who asked the question. And of course I lost it. Doggone it. What is wrong with me? He asked a good question. There we go. Brother Mazone asked, if Miami goes 9-3, but loses to Florida, Florida State, and Duke, does Cristobal keep his job? I think he probably would, but man.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy is on the line. The floor is yours, sir.
Hey, Greg. Good talking to you. To start off, the ACC stuff, I'm not even going to attempt to predict that mess. I tend to think Florida State's probably the best bet, though. The only tough pick I'll make on that is just be careful. First game of the season, could be all kinds of kinks in offenses and defenses. Don't quite know what you have. Don't quite know who's up to speed. Traveling across the pond. Odd start times. You just really don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky. They're probably not going to respect Georgia Tech all that much. So, how serious will they be going into this? They should watch out on that one. But, they can probably depend just on pure talent alone to get by. It just may be more of a game than people think. We'll see.
Yeah.
In terms of the Mountain West talk, though, I found that to be interesting. I honestly saw that just barely before you put out your post. I think we probably had the same person showing us it. That's very interesting because one of the, that's how the Mountain West came to be, is they split from the WAC. the WAC was supposed to be a super conference. But now they might do something like merging with the American in order to create a super conference. So it kind of has to make you wonder, why is now different than back then? Why could this work now when it would fail back then?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to have to kind of look at, the future and some of the mechanisms that they might have at their disposal to actually kind of monetize their games. And I think once we find out the governance here, like the judge has to determine the settlement, right? Like they have to make a judgment, say this is good, go forward. Then they can go and talk to Congress. Then they can present to us what this new governance model is that's inside it. Until it gets approved, they can't do that. So I'm thinking we might see some stuff in there that gives us a bit of a window to look into how those conferences might be able to make money off of this. Because right now you look at it and you say, that's a lot of schools. If you're going into the AAC and you're saying, hey, ESPN, you want to pay them all $7 million? That's probably a tough sell right now. But if, say, they're going to have a conference playoff or something in the future, and now you might actually want more schools in there, because then you have a better chance of having, 4 to 6 decent teams to put into that. So whoever might want to put those games on, those would probably be a higher quality game than what you would generally think of right now as either Mountain West or AAC, because you're conglomerating the whole thing. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I don't really got a whole lot more than that tonight. It's just for people who are looking at saying, how does this work? Well, it's kind of something I've been watching for a while, saying, expect a lot of G5 movement, my opinion only, in consolidation after we get a look at what this new governance is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man. So, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, you
Have
too,
a good night.
Immaculate. Great call. Just wait when I do, 2 weeks from now, when I do the Big Ten order of finish. Will I have the Iowa Hawkeyes finishing ahead of my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers? And what will Immaculate reaction be if I do?
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, one thing I didn't comment on the G5 Super Conference thing.
Yes.
As it pertains to that, I think it's hard to decipher media's contract provider for the different conferences and power conference, right? Because typically they're so convoluted you can't decipher the two. But if you look at the contracts, ESPN owns contracts for the American and the Sun Belt. They do not own a contract for the Mountain West, right? So I don't know whether ESPN and the CFP, whoever owns that, is motivated to pull, the Mountain West teams under an ESPN contract, and it's definitely not at a rate even close to the Big 12 or the ACC. So from that aspect, I think it's a pipe dream. And from another aspect, there kind of already is a G5 super conference. And if you look at the CFP, I think the Group of 5 champion gets into the tournament, right? The CFP tournament, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, it's kind of looked at all the Group of 5 as kind of grouped into a big, huge conference from a CFP standpoint. But I don't know how much more revenue can be generated by putting small schools that does not have the branding. I don't know whether there's an appetite for that. And as a matter of fact, I think if it was the Power 2's choice, they would cut off the G5 altogether. I think, the reason they didn't do it is through the legal reasons and antitrust reasons. But, I don't know whether your perspective on it, but if you look at it from a CFP perspective, the CFP kind of looks at the Group of Five as just this huge conference made up of 5 or 6 different conferences.
Yep. But I think we're going to get some heavy disruption in G5. I think there's going to be
in terms of teams moving.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. For the same reasons, what's going on in the power conferences.
I will say this though, Greg. I don't know if you pay attention, because I kind of pay attention to everything, from like FBS, FCS. Or, I live in Colorado. I live near the School of Mines, so D3, D2. But I've noticed there was a Texas school that was in the WAC, and they moved back to the Southland Conference. And I think the AD or the president mentioned he wanted more regionality. He wanted to be cost was a part. And so I can see with the smaller conferences, instead of getting bigger and spreading out wider, they get more consolidated and compressed geographically, because it does save them money to play teams within an hour or two instead of 6 hours away. But I would not be surprised if there is movement within the G5, but I just don't think it will be. I don't think the P2 will see it or feel it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, you make a good point. You make a very good point.
But thank you, Greg, once again. Have a blessed day.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call. I got a note from a friend of mine here. I have not seen. I've got the phone lines turned off for a moment. Now I don't know. I don't know how many of you follow me on Twitter, on X. I'm at Flug Empire. You see it on the bottom of the screen. Christopher Lambert, the dude from West Virginia, had a conversation with me about how he does not believe that North Carolina and Virginia would be the top targets for the SEC. And he really focused on North Carolina, because I've often said that North Carolina, besides Notre Dame, is the top target for the SEC and the Big Ten. And me and the dude, we've been going back and forth since 2014. He brings up a lot of good analysis. And so does everybody else when they talk about how it can't be North Carolina the number one target for the SEC. It has to be Florida State and Clemson, because they're the bigger brand football schools. Their football games would make more money for ESPN within the conference. You know the argument. And it is correct. I cannot, those arguments are correct. I can only tell you what I am hearing, the chatter. It's all I can communicate to you. And I know that, and Christopher Lambert said today, well, you better start listening to, you better question what you're hearing and whatever. And here's the thing. I just had a friend of mine gave me a small little email. I have not heard it myself, but today Dennis Dodd was on 365 Sports. I have not heard the interview. And supposedly Dennis Dodd basically said, according to what my friend said. Now, somebody in the chat room, if you did listen to Dennis Dodd on 365 Sports, and if I'm about to say something incorrect, please correct me. But my friend sent me an email. I'm reading it as this live show is happening. And basically Dennis Dodd said, yeah, it's North Carolina. It's not Florida State and Clemson. And it's nothing against Florida State and Clemson. But supposedly Dennis Dodd said it's Clemson. It's North Carolina that the SEC wants. And the Big Ten wants, but I don't believe the Big Ten can get them. That is not just mine. That's other people's, that's a whole lot of people's thinking right now. I'm telling you guys, we could all be wrong. And if we are, I will take the L. But it ain't. So Dennis Dodd is coming out just really strong with this. And he's Johnny come lately. There are other national reporters that are basically telling you what I'm telling you. Now, this doesn't happen very often for me where I'm agreeing with the national reporters. I did agree with them on the Colorado thing. We had the information about the meeting. We had a whole bunch of stuff, right? We have a whole bunch of stuff with Clemson and Florida State. We know that it's been very third party. There's been action third party. It's been pretty continuous. And it's with the interest of people who hold the interests of the Big Ten, not the Big Ten themselves. No. And supposedly Dennis Dodd basically said in public in this meeting, tell me if I'm wrong, Dennis Dodd said, and there is no official talks going on. It ain't happening. Florida State has not been offered by anybody. They haven't been. Neither has Clemson. Neither has North Carolina. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. The leaders of these conferences, their legal counsel won't let them work that way. When Brett Yormark met with Colorado on May 7th on a Sunday in Chicago, Illinois, he had to get that okayed by legal counsel, even though Colorado was getting out of their grant of rights a year later. None of that is happening, but there's still a lot of stuff going on. And people are being told stuff. When I'm not trying to put words in. I don't need to speak for. When these reporters are reporting, they might be wrong, but they're not just saying stuff. They're not just saying stuff to get you all worked up. They're not. I'm not saying stuff to get clicks. I'm not. You guys know how I run this show. I don't advertise this show. I don't do any. I don't. I think you guys know how I am. When I talked about how bad off the Pac-12 was, and I got raked over the coals by a whole lot of people, because the offers, they were not seeing any offers. It was the truth. That there is heavy chatter. There is heavy chatter. And maybe the chatter will change. But there is heavy chatter. I'm telling you, as the fat guy is sitting here, there is heavy chatter that the SEC is just really don't want. They want North Carolina. They don't want Florida State, Clemson. That's it. That's all I can tell you. And they want whatever is connected to North Carolina, whatever would make that work, which is probably Virginia. They want the students. North Carolina is the 9th largest state in the country, and it's going to be number 7 in 2030. Their demographics, their 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, that demographic is booming. When it gets to 2030, there's going to be so many students wanting to go to college from North Carolina and Virginia. And yes, if you brand that state SEC country, you do attract. You have a better chance of attracting those students to those Southeastern Conference universities. A more diverse student base. That is what look at it this way. The Big Ten took Rutgers and Maryland when they couldn't get North Carolina and Virginia. They tried to get North Carolina and Virginia. Big Ten doesn't always get what they want. Usually they don't get what they want, but what they've gotten has been really, really good. When they couldn't get North Carolina and Virginia, they went and got Rutgers and Maryland. Everybody said it was about the cable boxes. It was, but it was much more than that. And it was much more than those two universities with big research. Much more than that. It was their demographics. It was the population. It was the student. There were so many parents who were Big Ten alumnus, who live in Maryland, who live in Washington, who work in D.C., Washington, D.C. They have kids. They grow up, and the Big Ten wanted those kids. University of Northwestern, sitting in Chicago. You know how many Maryland and New Jersey students they have going at Northwestern? East Coast students that go to Northwestern, there's a lot. So this is what the SEC is interested in. And another thing. A question was asked to me today. What does North Carolina and Virginia, what problem does it solve for the SEC? It doesn't really solve anything. It helps the gathering of students for the next decade, next 2 decades, for Mississippi State, Mississippi, LSU, Arkansas, Missouri. It helps to get more diverse student. But it doesn't really solve anything. The SEC doesn't bow to anybody. They're the most powerful athletic conference in the country, the most valuable athletic conference in the country. But I tell you what North Carolina and Virginia going to the SEC does for the SEC besides the student thing. If North Carolina and Virginia, one of the problems it solves, if North Carolina and Virginia become SEC country, they don't become Big Ten country. Yes, you don't want the SEC does not want the Big Ten. They go anywhere in the Southeast, but eventually it's going to happen. Eventually the Big Ten's going to get in the Southeast. The SEC cannot play defense to the whole SEC. I mean, the whole Southeast. So, people believe the SEC will play defense in places that they don't have SEC institutions. North Carolina, Virginia. That's where they're going to play their defense. That's where they're willing to take a little bit of a hit in this subject line on the ledger, but they're gonna reap the rewards years down the line, because those are 2 states with a whole lot of discretionary spending, money, huge demographic population growth, and that's where the SEC wants to go. I get it. We are in a world in which we have a good reason not to trust anybody, any reporter. You should not trust anything I'm saying. I just run a college football YouTube channel. That's all I do. I do a lot more in my life. Trust me. I'm burning from both candles. But what I'm talking about when it comes to college football, who have a pretty good size Rolodex, but it's very small compared to these national football writers. And these national football writers, they may end up having to change what they are saying because new information is coming in. But for right now, I can tell you, man, I can tell you, anybody you talk to, these gentlemen, gentlewomen, talk to when it comes to this type of stuff, the SEC wants to go up north, North Carolina and Virginia. That is their top targets. And every single college football reporter out there is telling you the same thing. Now ask yourself, why is that? Because there's enough SEC people who have let it be known. It's not like, and I'm not going to say names, it's not like these college football reporters have been told one time, and that was 6 weeks ago, that was 6 months ago. The chatter has been continuous. And I'm going to say one other thing that a lot of people aren't going to hear that. A lot of people aren't going to like what I'm about to say. But those college football reporters are not the only ones hearing this chatter. Florida State and Clemson, they know they're prioritizing something here. They're prioritizing the Big Ten. Maybe the SEC will come a-calling. Maybe when they have those third-party talks, people who will hold interest from the SEC, a former writer of an SEC newspaper, a former whatever, a former associated athletic director of Mississippi State might finally have that talk with somebody at Clemson. But Clemson and Florida State they have their priorities. They know what the SEC wants. And they're not at the top of the list. And the Big Ten also has come to this consensus. And they're gonna be ready to rush the field. If some settlement happens at some point in the next year, whatever, Big Ten's gonna rush in and they're gonna see if they can nab the two that they believe they can get. And right now it's Florida State and Clemson. All numbers on the napkin, all the talk about how valuable Florida State football is, how valuable Clemson is, much more valuable than North Carolina and Virginia. You can sell the rivalries better. Florida State SEC games, Clemson SEC games, you can sell all that better. ESPN would enjoy that more. All that is true. All that is true. This is about attracting a different, more diverse, just more students to university. The international student connection that University of Virginia has. A whole bunch of stuff has been told to us on why the SEC, the footprint, the media market, Raleigh, North Carolina, the growing media market, that political connections in Northern Virginia. It goes on and on and on and on. This is what the SEC is targeting. And they're targeting it so much. And they've circled their wagons around North Carolina, something we told you a year ago at Peek Around the Corner. So much. Kevin Gusowich is gone. North Carolina is different now. And the Big Ten has picked up what the SEC has been laying down. When Paul Feinbaum says the Big Ten gets what the SEC doesn't want, he's not necessarily lying. And don't cry for the Big Ten, because whatever happens, they're going to get something that is going to work for them. And the SEC is going to make sure they get something that works for them. Does the SEC really want to expand? Not really. But they can't let the Big Ten come in and take everything. So they're going to grab the bigger footprint. They're going to grab the bigger, the more diverse student base in states that are growing. In North Carolina, that state is just exploding. And they want it to be SEC. Okay, I'm going to open up the... well, you know what? I think we'll just... let me get to some super chats here. Ryan Willie, there should be tougher requirements for Florida State, FCS schools to hump to the FBS, requiring 70,000 stadiums. Right now, they did bump up the money requirement. It took $5,000. I believe it was $5,000. Now it costs $5 million for a school to jump. They're not going to have the 60 to 70,000 stadium requirements. But it is interesting, Ryan Willie. I think we might see some more tinkering of the requirements in the years ahead. You do bring up a very good point. And congratulations, Ryan Willie. Thank you so very much for becoming a member for the 6th month. Holy smokes. Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity, Ryan Willie. Numbskull News swears that the expansion will stop with Florida State and Clemson. I can't wait to see him take the big L. Well, you know what? I like Numbskull News, and I like that he went out and said it. When Numbskull News says something, he says it with clarity. And I think people should enjoy that. From a college football YouTube channel, Numbskull News does a great job. He says it with clarity. He's entertaining. I love the cadence. I love how he talks. We disagree, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for your super chat. I do appreciate your generosity once again. Let me get to some comments here. Feinbaum has been all over the board over the last year. There is some truth to that. No question. Florida is bigger than North Carolina and Virginia combined. Yeah. And it is a big enough state. And Tallahassee is a different media market than Gainesville and Miami. No question about it. Now, but the SEC does have a school in the state of Florida. And they know where the students come from. So are they able to attract some students on the northwest side of the state of Florida, northwest coast? I don't know. But again, North Carolina and Virginia don't have any schools in the SEC in the Big Ten. But I do understand Florida is a huge school, no question about it. Huge state, no question about it. The SEC has 2 schools in Texas, 2 schools in Alabama. Well, the Alabama and Auburn, that happened a long time ago. Texas, absolutely correct. Texas A&M and the University of Texas, Austin, are completely 2 demographics in the state of Texas. 2 huge, both of them, gigantic. So it could happen, and it did. And again, that in Tennessee, that happened a long time ago. Big Ten isn't desperate to expand either, but they will likely be forced to make a move. Not forced. I would disagree respectively. The Big Ten's plan was to always go to the West Coast first. Again, Oregon and Washington, as we reported here, peek around the corner. And then to go to the Southeast. The Big Ten is following their plan. The Big Ten isn't desperate, but they want to get to the Southeast. They are following their plan. Immaculate UNC is very different. Complete takeover. The pro Big Ten folks that were helped to move to the Big Ten, they all got run out of town. That includes Delaney. Check it out. Florida State message boards, alumni fans don't like ESPN. I'm calling Florida State to the Big Ten. Paul Clifton says Florida State doesn't want the SEC. It's probably a mutual thing here, guys. Guys and gals, it's probably mutual. I will say this, DP Clemson Tiger. Clemson to the Big Ten only makes sense if they do not get an invite from the SEC. The Big Ten is counter to everything Clemson believes in. Morgan Fralick, Greg, you are delusional. Clemson Tigers are being highly, highly underestimated. Best defense you will see in the ACC, and it's not close. You will take an L on the Tigers like many media outlets. Well, we got them fourth. If they finish third place, second place, first place, Morgan, I can guarantee you this, I will take the L. I will take the L. No question about it. Now, I got hammered by Clemson fans last year when I picked Florida State to win the ACC, and ACC media, during the ACC media days, picked Clemson. They picked Clemson. I was shocked. We'll see what happens. But I don't have Florida State, Clemson. I don't have Miami. I don't have any of those schools winning the ACC. I got the Wolfpack. I've got the Wolfpack. They were the Big Ten's plan was always to add to the West before they went to the Southeast. Now, of course, if the Pac-12 would have gotten their stuff together and Oregon and Washington would have stayed, and maybe it doesn't happen 5 years, there's a chance that the Big Ten would go to the Southeast first. But the plan was, after UCLA and USC joined in June 30th, the plan was for the Big Ten to go to the West again before they went to the Southeast. That's why we said, keep your eye on Oregon and Washington for the next 5 months. And it happened. There was enough schools in the Big Ten that did not want to leave UCLA, USC on an island. They wanted Oregon and Washington. Fox Sports wanted Oregon. Every school in the Big Ten West wanted Washington and Oregon, except for Iowa's athletic director at the time was skittish on it. Trev Alberts, athletic director of Nebraska at the time, rallied the Big Ten to go grab Oregon and Washington. Wisconsin wanted Washington. So there was a lot of interest. The economics was difficult. The legal issue was difficult. Greg, stop hating. I'm not hating. Great question by Go Black 45. More overrated 5-star quarterback, Klubnik or Drew Aller? Wow. Wow, that's a great question. I'm going to have to go with Klubnik right now. I think Aller has a better chance of getting through this season, remaining quarterback 1, QB1 of Penn State, than Klubnik has for Clemson. And it is the reason. Besides, it's not just Klubnik. You know, it's the receivers of Clemson. They don't have those incredible receivers anymore. I don't know. Maybe Tyler Brown is going to be that. Maybe Antonio Williams is going to be that. Especially Antonio Williams. Maybe one of those guys is just going to be incredible. But again, so to me, it's more than even Klubnik. Yes, they got a great defense. They still recruit, develop, keep their defensive players. They play at an incredibly high level. They're absolutely stacked. R.J. Mickens, they're absolutely stacked. Secondary, Clemson's going to be a great defensive team, but I don't know. Penn State's wide receivers are awful. Most wide receiver drops, absolutely correct. It's going to be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. So we're going to close up this live show. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 12 minutes. I want to thank Ryan Willie for his incredible generosity to our channel. The comments, the couple phone calls that we received. Tomorrow, Tuesday, June 11th. Keep your head on a swivel. We're going to be talking college football, of course, like we always do, but we don't know when we're going to come on. So you got to make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications. Have your notifications turned on to our show. We could be doing a morning show, could be doing a noon show, could be doing one late at night. We cover the breaking news. We do our predictions. We talk college football. We cover everything in college football. I want to thank everybody in the PATC community for joining us tonight. It was fun. ACC predictions. Next week, it's going to be the Big 12. The third week in June, it's going to be the Big 10. At the end of June, it's going to be the SEC. And then we're going to be doing our G5 predictions in July and a whole bunch of other stuff in July as we head towards the August camp. And again, we're going to keep an eye on the Holy Smokes Theater when it comes to Pac-2 and Friends, the matinee show, and the primetime show, the ACC drama. It continues. It continues. We do have some court hearings coming up this month and next month, so keep your head on a swivel, buckle up, brace for impact. Until next time. From all of us at College Football's PATC, to all of you, please, 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 you all take good care of each other. The 2024 ACC champion, your North Carolina State Wolfpack. Until next time.